Hello there. Welcome to the Maker Manager Money podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, founders, business owners, and business partnerships, from startups to stay-ups, to inspire entrepreneurs to keep going and future entrepreneurs to just start. My name is Kyle Knowles, and I'm just trying to make some cool content on a Wednesday night at Kiln. That's KILN.com if you want to check it out. KILN as in numero uno. In co-working space. And tonight we're in the Bastille meeting room. Today's guest is Ian Bowles, who has been in the marketing agency world for nearly 18 years. Ian earned a degree in marketing communications with a minor in graphic design from BYU. He then returned to school after working full-time for 10 years to get his MBA from Utah Valley University. Shortly after starting his MBA program, he had the opportunity to be a co-founder of Gantry with two partners, Benjamin Moffett and Corey Fenton. Gantry is a design, motion, and video production agency. Clients include Adobe and Microsoft. Gantry prides itself on turning complexity into simplicity, specializing in cell-style animation, 2D motion graphics, 3D animation, and live-action shots. Live-action shoots, that is. Ian works as a manager, project manager, director, editor, writer, and sometimes animator and designer at Gantry. He lives in Layton, Utah with his wife and 4 children. Ian, welcome to the Maker Manager Money podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. This is great. Such a lovely introduction.
Sorry, I messed it up a little bit, but here we're going to roll with it.
It's going to be the only mess up of the entire night, I assure you.
The only mess up, yes, I hope so. So I've heard, Ian, that 80% of businesses close down within the first 5 years. Gantry's been in business for over 7 years now. What do you attribute to beating those business odds?
First off, I mean, the people I work with are fantastic. Ben and Corey, and each bring a strength to our partnership. We're I know you had Ben on, and I think he mentioned this, but all 3 of us are just equal partners, and we each bring this. I refer to it as a 3-legged stool a little bit. That we each kind of stabilize what we bring to the table, and I think one of the results of that is the culture we've created, in finding a good balance of why we do what we do to and which, is always an evolving, discovering why we're doing it is always an evolving thing for us anyway. And, how we do it is, creating, wow, I feel really dumb now. Creating a culture, we really strive to create a culture that is a place that we would want to work, because we do work there. We're not just managers. We're in the weeds. We are doing everything with our team members. So.
It sounds like it with the list of different jobs that you do. It sounds like there's nothing you don't do.
Yeah. I don't do QuickBooks, and Ben takes care of that and a lot of the business development. But I'm in a really fun position where I spend some of my time in production and with Corey, and he is just such a phenomenal designer and a work ethic like no one I've ever known, and really ambitious about every project we do. And Ben, who is the most personable, approachable human being you'll ever meet. And I'm in the middle, doing some production and some business development, some strategy, some writing, some, all of those different things that are necessary for an agency to stay afloat. I kind of get to help out with all those things. So that's fun. I really like what I do.
Is there a favorite thing that you get to do?
My favorite thing, which is something I've had, one of my, if we go back to like core memories of work, was back on the first project I worked on with you, back at the previous agency I was at, and we showed you the video we were working on. And those are my favorite things. I love showing a client the work and watching, like on the Zoom call. I'm not watching when we're like, okay, let's show it, when we hit play, and we are not looking at the work. We're looking at the Zoom call, watching their faces, and knowing that we've solved a problem that they've hired us to solve is insanely satisfying for me. I don't get as caught up in the details of like, oh, do I like this style better? Is this my, I do have an opinion about those things, but at the end of the day, if we've solved a problem for somebody, I find that very satisfying.
That's really cool. So doing the work, making something, and then debuting it.
Yeah. And then having them just having that reaction be like, oh my gosh, yes, you guys nailed it. And we've structured our process so that we can get to that point as often as possible. That when we're showing them the version that we call it a provable V1, we expect that there'll be feedback to it, but they've seen it in the script, they've seen it in the, in the pitch, in the script, in the storyboards, in the style comps, in the animatic, all the way through. And so that when the first time they see it all put together, it's not like a half-baked kind of like, this will eventually be like, we get to show them something that's, ready to go, presumably, just about. And that's just a really exciting process.
So what is the process from cradle to grave then? Walk me through your process at Gantry.
We get started. Our cradle starts just at any part in the process. Sometimes people come to us and say, I need a video. And then they explain what they want to do. And we say, you don't need a video. You should do something else. Like we focus on video, but we try not to fall victim to if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So we'll tell people, maybe a video is not the right thing for you, but let's assume that it is the right thing. We'll, work out what they want to accomplish with the video. We'll work through a script or a concept and then a script. It just depends on who the client is and how out there they're willing to be, and how much freedom we have. Sometimes people come to us with a script already, half baked, and we kind of wordsmith it and fix it, because we always try to be, our motto is collaborative, not combative. Because we have strong opinions about things, and we don't shy away from telling people, hey, we think there might be a better way to do this. So we get the script, we work on a visual direction. We usually, this is one of the team's favorite parts of the process. We set everybody loose and say, here's the parameters, here's the brief, go nuts. What should this look like? And we then present anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 different visual directions for a project, and say, any one of these could be the final project, be the final visual language for this. From there, once we get approval on that, I think I skipped over the scripting process.
Well, so yeah, when you present that, is that in storyboard?
No,
is
usually,
there a script?
Usually,
or what
so yeah,
usually
that's one of the things we have to tell people is, hey, this is not necessarily one-to-one with the script. This is just, we let everybody loose, because oftentimes the script is still being finalized. While we're doing that, we try to cascade those so it doesn't take 6 months to do one of these things. Usually our process is 8 to 12 weeks, just depending on the intensity of the video, the length, and all that kind of thing, and the style and what have you. So we've got the script baked. We're working on the visual style comps. We present that to them. They usually pick one, or they Frankenstein a couple. That's pretty common. They're like, hey, I really love the typography here, but can we go with the color scheme here and these characters, or whatever whatever that might be. From there, we move into an animatic where I get to go record a scratch track. And
you do the voiceover?
I usually do the voiceovers, for much to my coworkers' dismay. They get to listen to me all day while they're animating. Maybe that's why they don't like me, I think. So we'll do a scratch track and usually we will do an animatic over a storyboard. I like an animatic, which is just still frames set to a scratch, a temporary voiceover track. So that everyone understands, here's the timing of this. Here's how long we're spending on everything. Oh, wow, that sentence, even though it looks the same length as this other sentence, takes a long time to say properly, and it's too long. We need to shorten that up. Let's reword that. It reveals holes in the script. It reveals holes where a storyboard might not. On a storyboard, you just got a paragraph of text underneath there, and then when you get to it, you realize that's way too long to be sitting on that. No one wants to watch that. You're losing my interest. So we'll do that animatic, and we'll show that to the client. That'll either be sort of full artboards or sometimes just sketches. It really depends on the client and the relationship we have with them, how much they trust us and we trust them to go to bat for it. We'll do maybe a round or two of that, make sure that it's good. That last round of feedback ideally is like, great, we will worry about that in animation. That's going to trust us. That'll be fine. And then then we go into animation. Everyone puts their headphones on. I usually direct the voiceover sessions with, we hire professional VO talent, because it just makes a world of difference. And we'll direct them and get cut it down to exactly what we want. And then we usually animate to that. Some people like to animate first and then have a voiceover go to picture. But for most of the videos that we do, it's just really nice to let the voiceover artist kind of find their stride. And oftentimes we're still making little tweaks here and there to that along the way. And then, the team animates, for a week and a half, 2 weeks, just kind of off and on. We've usually got, 4 or 5 projects active in the house at any one time. And we work pretty collaboratively on that in ways that I know other agencies don't. When people come and work with us, it's a little bit of a shock to like, oh, you guys are in each other's files like constantly. And we're constantly working on different pieces of it and stitching it back together at the end of the day. And then we add the music and show it to the client. And ideally they love it and they have very little changes. And then we purchase the music or purchase the stock if there's any stock in there, and do any color correction and ship it on out the door. Most of the stuff we do ends up on the web, or social media. Some of it ends up on broadcast, but not a ton. That's definitely not our focus. And most people know us. The people who know us and the people who come back to us, they know us for those things. Sometimes they end up at events. Sometimes it's, in store or something like that, but mostly it's online. So that's the process.
It's a really cool process. What are some of the tools that you're using day in and day out? When you say, people come work with us and they're in the files and stuff, what are some of the applications?
Yeah,
that you use?
We're Creative Suite, people. It's just kind of the default for everybody, and that's great. Everybody kind of knows it. And we're a Cinema 4D shop. It's not something I touch, but the people who do the 3D at the shop, Cinema 4D. And for those really interested, we use an Octane render engine, or the Octane render engine. We've played around with Redshift a little bit, but Octane's kind of where we are right now. We are sort of switching over to PC slowly because Apple's decided they don't want to support professional 3D people, unfortunately. I'm still on a Mac. I rock Premiere and Audition and After Effects and Illustrator. Those are my happy places. After Effects is kind of the 90% of our projects. That's where they're going to get rendered out of final, is as out of After Effects. We'll pull all of our 3D in there. We've got some pretty solid workflows, and the team works together really well to understand, okay, we're going to all work on this root timeline. Here's the audio. I'm going to take up to frame 432. You take 433 and on. I'm going to, give you I'm going to overlap and mine's going to reveal away. So your layer will be under mine, and then you just keep going. So we'll just, it's just a conversation like that. And, we build our own language of how we talk about things. And yeah, After Effects is kind of the glue that puts everything back together. So some of it's animated in After Effects, and some of it's animated in Cinema 4D, but that's kind of where it all sticks together.
Nice. And sorry to geek out a little bit longer, but what other applications, like for project management or communication, all that kind of stuff?
We are a pandemic adopter of Slack. We used to all be on just iMessages, or because we were all on Macs before that anyway. But then with the pandemic, we're like, all right, Slack, we kind of need to have a little bit more robust than just our iMessages. For project management, we use Team Gantt, which is something we've been using that for about 4 years now, I think. We looked and we were pretty extensive about trying to find something that fit the needs of what we wanted. And I know we just scratched the surface about what can be done with the software. There's so many great project management softwares, and it's got so many great features that I know I don't use. It's got a couple that I wish it had still. But as far as primarily, we're doing that to measure out how long we think the project's going to take. We can create a Gantt chart that we can share with our clients, and so they like that, or export an Excel, to share with them depending on how they want to see that. We track our hours with that as well. We are, I think, relatively unique. Maybe not. I can't really. I've worked at 2 agencies my entire life, one of which I started. So, I definitely recognize a gap in my knowledge there, but I feel like we're unique in that we don't harp on our employees for the hours that they're spending on something. We kind of know. We meet every day. We talk about, okay, who's working on what. We kind of just have a vibe for that. We have them track hours for the sake of knowing next time we made a project, did we take a bath on that, or was that okay? Which is probably my, business professors are probably, freaking out about that if they're listening to this. But, it's, we keep an eye on it. And we know kind of an estimate. We tell people, hey, we're thinking this will probably take you 2 days to do. But if it takes you 2.5, we're not going to sweat about it. We're just assuming that you learned something from it and you were working from it, and cool, we consider that a win. So Team Gantt, we use, we just have Squarespace for our website. We originally were going to build a WordPress thing, and then and paid for. We're like, we're going to go month to month on Squarespace, and 7 years later, we're like, okay, no, we're paying for it annually. That's fine. It's just because web isn't really what we focus on. We're not a website. We don't do apps. And we just, when we started the company, we said, hey, we really like doing video. We like doing, animation. We like doing motion graphics. That evolved into doing 3D. We like shooting stuff every once in a while, live action. But web and apps were just not interesting to us. And if we could make a living not doing those, then we would do that. So I think that's most of the tools we use. I mean, Ben uses QuickBooks Online. Begrudgingly, we don't. But it just seems to be the best, big kid software that we're using for that, which is, probably for the best. So.
And so no PowerPoints, no keynotes.
Really try to avoid doing them. I don't mind doing them. I'm going to say that on the record. I just said that I don't mind doing them. They can be frustrating, not because of the art, not because of the software to do them, because we usually just design them in Illustrator or Photoshop and bring it over. It's more that the process is for the level of PowerPoint that's going to be really interesting. The level of that CEO keynote presentation. You're working with CEOs, and sometimes they have so many things on their plate that the PowerPoint presentation is the last thing on their radar, and so you end up with late changes, and they don't get to give their input until much later, and so that can be frustrating. And so we try to limit those. They can sometimes cause teams to tune out a little bit and not enjoy those. We try to find that balance of finding projects that are interesting, but also profitable enough to be worth doing, and find that balance of the things we say yes to.
So I'm going to geek out just a little bit more, and then I want to go back to your process. Hardware. So I know video files and these kinds of things can be pretty gigantic. Mm-hmm. What kind of hardware do you have to kind of manage all that, and what's kind of your mode of file management and all that?
Yeah, we do have a pretty ancient NAS that's in the office that we do store some footage on, but for the most part, we use, the second we shoot something, that's where we really have the big files, the big files that are not just 3D sequences are going to be image sequences. So the individual files are not that big, but the bulk of them add up to a lot. And those are easy to manage on Dropbox. Dropbox is what we use for our file storage for our server, so to speak. For big pieces of footage, we're on an unlimited plan on Dropbox, and so we just kind of throw them up there sometimes. But some of the team will, instead of having to sync that down and such, we'll have a couple extra hard drives sitting around. We'll archive stuff on hard drives. The second we shoot something, we pull it onto 2 hard drives, that we bought at different times from different manufacturers, or if it's the same manufacturer, from different retailers, so they're not in the same batch, so that we don't have 2 hard drives fail us at the same time. But yeah, so we'll have a couple hard drives with the footage on there. We try to make those identical, and everybody who plugs them in knows, don't mess with everything on there. Save everything else on Dropbox, and that's where we kind of run things from. And because we're so collaborative, it usually takes people a little bit when they start working with us. Like, no, we expect your working files to be up there. That just work in Dropbox. Have it synced, have the folder synced locally. The files are too big to be, streaming like some people do and some people can do on Dropbox. Ours, they're usually, a couple gigs sometimes, and so they have to be synced locally on the machine. But we make it work. I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
okay,
totally. So back to the process. So I'm a new client, or I want to be a new client with you. What are some recommendations you can give to people that work with a company like Gantry and they want to get a video done? Like, give me some bullet point recommendations of what a company needs to do to work well with a video agency. Okay.
Things that I wish some of our clients knew better is the amount of work that it's going to take on their end, especially if they want something done quickly. Like, okay, we can do it quicker, but you're going to have to turn around very quickly, same day feedback on things, which means within their organization, they might have to reorganize how they're getting approvals or who gets to have a say on it. So that's one thing. I think knowing what you want to accomplish and trusting the professionals that you're hiring. It sounds very self-serving of me, but there's definitely times of finding that balance between giving clients what they want and what they actually need. Sometimes those are the same thing. Sometimes those are very different things. Yeah, I think if you're going to work with work with somebody whose work you like, come with examples of their work. Flattery works amazingly on designers. You just tell them, "Oh, I love this piece that you guys did. Can you do something in that, along that line for me?" Or you can bring something that's, from another agency, or just something you've seen online, something you've seen on TV. Like, I loved this spot. Can we do something that feels like this? Those are very, very helpful for us anyway, to gauge how much time we're going to need to spend on this, how intense the process will be, and then therefore to bid it accordingly. If you have a budget, just tell us. We, usually, oftentimes what happens is we'll have this initial kickoff meeting. They'll kind of explain what they want. Maybe if they don't have samples, we just start spinning like, okay, well, we do the shoot, we do a motion control camera, we could do blah, 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 blah. And so we come back to them with a budget and say, okay, here's what we think it's going to be. And they're like, oh, it's like twice as much as we were hoping to spend. And that's just a little frustrating to say, oh, well, if you told us that, we could have worked backwards and said, here's what we'll do. And 9 times out of 10, we are cramming more work into that than they're paying us for, just because we like what we do and we don't like putting out subpar work. So we're always going to make it nice. So yeah, I think just having a good idea of what you want. And if you don't, being okay in saying that, I guess, saying, hey, I'm not sure what I want. And then sometimes that happens. We will come back and say, well, okay, out of this gallery that runs a whole range of production values and styles and voices, what speaks to you, what seems like the closest to what you're imagining. So we can go through that process with them, but if they kind of know what they're looking for, that's always really helpful.
All right. Thanks for the tips. For getting free advice tonight.
Yes.
So
it's worth what you're paying for it. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So when you look at the whole process, right, that you have to go through, what is the most difficult part of the process with your clients? Meaning that's the biggest roadblock.
Yeah, I don't know if there is any single one. Some projects, it's surprising that, like, hey, this is the getting the script nailed down. That's probably the most consistent. Fighting against a good friend of mine who is a copywriter. He calls them their binky words. The things that the CEO just needs to hear inside of the in the voiceover script to feel comfortable, and then he calls the sort of the buzzwords that when they get down into the deep terminology about the integrated turnkey cloud multi-cloud database solution, he just calls that GAC. He's like, that's just GAC. It just doesn't. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to listen to that. Now, granted, there's videos where people do care, and we do those videos too. We do the videos that are deep dives into the technology, and that's fine too. But for those higher level ones, getting them to focus on saying no, getting them to say, what is it that you want people to take away from this? Because if you add more, that's not what they're not going to take away that main thing, that key walk away from the video. You get like 1, maybe 2. That's what they're going to remember. And what do you want that to be? And really reinforcing that. So that can be sometimes difficult, just depending on the client. Getting them to bite on an interesting style and not go with the safe one. We've been known to, like, we're not going to show them this really, really safe one because they'll pick it and it's not as good as if they picked some of these other ones. And, if that sometimes ends up being, not that we like withhold it from them forever, but like, once they've seen it, like, okay, here was a safe one that we had. We're really glad you went with the not safe one, the one that's going to get noticed, the one that's going to be memorable. It's not just that it's not safe for the sake of doing something different, but something that will be memorable and serve their purpose. They hire us to solve a problem, and regardless of how cool a video looks, if it doesn't solve the problem, then we didn't do our job right.
Was that Todd that you were referring to as a copywriter?
That was not Todd. That was actually a different copywriter. We work with a couple. That's one position that we don't ever hire on, like, permanently for. We like having a different variety of voices to tap into for the right project. That copywriter is actually my buddy Stephen Winston. He's currently at he's based in New York, and he's currently working at MRM McCann, I believe. So He's worked all over the place and he's had some Super Bowl commercials and things like that. So cool dude. I went to school with him. He was in my that marketing communications creative track where you get a minor in graphic design or become a copywriter, and he was a copywriter dude.
That's awesome. In the process, you listed a whole bunch of different titles that you take on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think your superpower is in this process?
I think project direction and being a client whisperer a little bit. I talk too much in meetings, but sometimes I talk the right amount in meetings, and really dive in and understand what the client's looking for, both on a messaging level, but also on what is their product? What is it doing? I've been working with tech companies for my whole career. And so I've got enough knowledge to be dangerous on, when it was first virtualization and then cloud and then, CASB and these different technologies, and then, Bitcoin there for a little bit, or blockchain for a little bit. And then that kind of went away. And now we're talking, thankfully, none of our clients needed us to do anything with NFTs. But, just being able to I really enjoy diving in, and especially if I'm going to conduct an interview or if I'm helping to write the script, to be able to speak to that intelligently rather than just, I think this sounds better, but to say, hey, this is going to support your initiatives and your messaging objectives better, and to be able to objectively spell that out why to somebody. I think that's hopefully a superpower.
I know, Ben, and you've talked about this, but as kind of what Gantry does, taking something complex and simplifying it, because I think that's part of your superpower too. I've seen that in action. Yeah,
I think that's part of it, is that you have to, in order to do that, you have to understand it. Otherwise, you're just chopping limbs off of a tree and not really understanding why you're trying to make it the shape that you are. If you understand, okay, well, this one, we can get rid of this, or we can hint at this in this line of the script, and then we still have it covered. We're still hinting at it, but we don't have to explicitly spell it out. We can, and that every decision you are making is then in support of that brief or of that problem that you're trying to solve. I think that's really important. Sometimes we, everyone loses sight of that. Every once in a while, you get really excited about a design, and then we look at it and we're like, oh, that's really cool, but is it doing what it needs to do? No. But did it help propel the project along and get us to where we needed to go? Okay, great. It's time to murder that baby. Just throw it out. It's not there. It's not serving us anymore, but it did get us to where we needed to go to. So
nice. I think the quality of the outcome is tied to the quality of questions that are asked to in those discovery meetings. So
I do love when I get that's a really great question. I'm like, okay, good.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like finding, if you're playing a video game and you don't find any enemies, you're probably not going the right direction. You don't find any questions, any like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that yet. Then maybe you're not asking the right questions.
Yeah. So people would be surprised about the number of hours that go into even a 60-second spot. Probably even more time goes into a 60-second spot than a 5-minute spot, I'm guessing.
It can, yeah.
So can you give a rough estimate, if you think about it? Like, even let's just say you're going to do the whole thing on your own. You're going to write, you're going to shoot, you're going to edit, you're going to add motion effects, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, for a 60-second spot that's going to, be on the web, it's some kind of product launch, how many hours, as a rough estimate, that would go into a 60-second spot?
Yeah, that number is unfortunately incredibly wide, a wide range. It could be as little as 40 hours of one person working on it.
Doesn't sound like a little.
Okay. I guess that's maybe
40 hours for 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's. If it's a live action, if it's talking head and a little bit of B-roll, and we're just editing that together, we're putting together a story, and maybe the interview was only 20 minutes long, so I don't have 3 hours of footage to go through. Something like that with a little bumper on the beginning, bumper on the end. That could be, the shoot day plus another day editing and finalizing, so 2.5 days, let's say. Some of our more advanced projects that are have 3D and script and sound design and or anything to do with rotoscoping or post-production effects, visual effects or anything like that, those can get up to 300 400 hours, man hours on the thing when all is said and done, and it takes some time. So I like to analogy I like to give to our customers when they ask, once we've established a budget, usually we like to work on a project to project basis. Just that's how we get our value. I feel like is we sell our value is we are a partner with you. We're not focusing on the nitty gritty of, well, we've billed you this many hours. We do keep track of that so we can tell them, hey, we're out of scope now. But when they say, hey, we're making this longer now, I say, okay, well, it's how much design jam are we spreading over time toast? How thin are we layering that? If you've got a whole loaf of bread right there and we've got a teaspoon of jam, it's going to be pretty darn thin on there, and the quality's not going to be there. It's not going to be a very enjoyable experience. But when we get that ratio right, it's really nice.
What's the length of video that you mostly produce?
90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Yep, that's the sweet spot. I mean, I really like the clients who say, nope, we want this to be 60. All right, let's do this. But
because it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to make something that fits within the parameter. It's an additional parameter to stick to. But creativity needs constraints. You have to have something to push against in order to produce your best work. I'm a firm believer of that. A lot of our clients go, I want this like 3 to 5 minute video, and we're like, no, you don't. Nobody wants to watch that. There's very few cases where I'm like, okay, no, that warrants a 3 to 5 minute video. We will almost always try to push them towards a 60 to 90 second video, and 90 seconds is kind of a good compromise. And I think if you call people on, well, when was the last time you watched a 5 minute video in this subject? They're like, I don't. Okay, your audience is the same. They're not going to watch this if it's 5 minutes long, unless it's really, really, really compelling content. So in general, 90 seconds is kind of what we'll tell people is the sweet spot and attention. And, our reel is never longer than that. Our reels usually try to be a minute. When we're trying to show off ourselves, we try to, follow our own advice and keep it short, sweet, leave them wanting a little bit more, wanting to, call us and work with us. So yeah, that's 90 seconds.
It's interesting because Instagram Reels, I think the limit is 90 seconds, and YouTube Shorts, I believe the limit is 60 seconds.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's something that's, as that short form video has, become more and more popular, we'll get more and more saying, we need to keep it to 60. We're like, all right, that's great. And it's not like, it becomes so much easier for us because we're getting out of 30 seconds of animation. It's like, no, it's just as hard to cram more stuff into that 60 seconds and say all the things they want to, but still have it be enjoyable and memorable and accomplish their goals.
And how many times do you deliver vertical video of what you produce?
More and more lately. That's a lot of the stuff we do it's more technical, it's more explanatory. I don't think they're getting a lot of traction on Instagram and things like that. But sometimes, some of the things we do that are a little more consumer facing, we'll do, those almost always we'll do vertical. And we've done projects where it's like, okay, vertical first. We know that the primary medium for this is going to be, Instagram stories or something like that. So TikTok. Yeah. So we'll do it vertical first, and then build out the 16:9 version of it if need be. So but there's been some that we just never have. It's like, yep, they would rather us spend the money or spend the time making that vertical one better than carving off some of that time in order to reformat it, to something horizontal if they know that that's what they need, which is great. If they know what they need, then that means we can focus on that rather than delivering, 14 different formats and sizes that may or may not get used.
Yeah. So, Ian, what is your journey from before going to school, marketing communications, minoring in graphic design, to sitting here today?
A lot of bad choices. I was an engineering major my freshman year. I volunteered on the dorm council. I was like, I want to make signs for for events. I don't know why. And I was like, this is fun. And then I switched
by hand or what?
I would take Calvin and Hobbes comics and change the words on them, and they'd put them up in the bathroom stall so people would read those for events that were coming up. Or I'd made posters or helped out with just different initiatives to get people to come to the events that the dorm council was putting on. And it was just I volunteered sort of the first half of first semester, and then the second semester I was in the dorm council as part of the class, and I'm like, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cool. And so then I switched to a marketing communications major, and I didn't know anything about design. I was not the kid who doodled or was an amazing illustrator and artist at all. I'm still terrible. My storyboards and ideas are always in really poorly drawn stick figures. I started volunteering actually at the Student Life Organization at BYU. They had a volunteer coordinator who would teach you how to just use Illustrator to make posters for the different clubs. Would come to the design center and say, hey, we need a poster for this. We need a flyer for this. And so she was kind of, I made that my job. Was I would go there every day before my actual job and like spend an hour and a half. And then I got into the program, loved it. Did the creative track where we had just 12 of us that were in this pretty intense advertising driven, had some great professors, loved it, had a minor in graphic design, met one of my favorite professors of all time, Brent Barson, if you're ever listening to this, hi, and ended up getting a job where he worked at my first big kid job at an agency in Sandy where I stayed for 10 years. I was looking for something to push me at that point. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I might have wanted to get out of the industry. So I found an MBA program that was very convenient for me, in that it was literally the meeting. We were meeting like 2 minutes from my house. So it wasn't going to add anything to my commute. I had 4 kids at the time, all very young. So I didn't want to spend any more time away from home than I already was. And then about 12 weeks into that program, I got told that we were losing our jobs in 6 weeks because the agency was going to close down. So Ben and I went up to my office and said, okay, we always joke that if this place went out of business, we were going to start our own shop. And now it's happening. We reached out to Corey, said, hey, we're going to start our own shop. Do you want to join? He's like, yeah, I don't like having a steady paycheck. Let's do this. Health insurance, what's that? No. And then, so I was doing that MBA while we were starting Gantry and closing up at that other agency. We worked there for another 6 weeks while we were going to school. Well, I was going to school, starting Gantry, and working full time still. It was a tough 6 weeks. Wow. I really liked my MBA program. I know I've said this to a lot of people, but there was nothing in the program that I couldn't have gotten from TED Talks and reading books and, online articles and things like that. But I know myself, and I know I wouldn't have done it. I know that, I was 10 years into that job and I hadn't progressed. I'd stopped progressing. I needed some accountability for myself. And I just knew that I wasn't very good at sticking to things like that. So I signed up for that program and really enjoyed it. Really forced me to work with people that maybe I wouldn't have chosen to work with, work on problems that I wouldn't have worked on. And I really appreciated that in a much different way than my undergrad. Recognized some of the flaws in the way that I approached my undergrad education, of thinking I'm the smartest person in the room and like I know all this stuff. I just got to get the grade. I got to just do this. And getting an MBA is not a and now you have an MBA and you can put that on your LinkedIn and that means you're qualified to do whatever job. It just is an opportunity to push yourself and grow and learn things that you otherwise wouldn't learn. And I really like that. I think it really opened up, reignited sort of a love of learning and of learning different things and pushing myself to read things that maybe aren't as interesting to me on their face value. So it served us really well at Gantry for me to have that experience, just bringing a little bit different perspective to the table. It was serving me already. Just as soon as I started, it was serving me really well at the other agency. Just, I would go to my boss the next day and say, hey, we should change this up, how we do this. Or I like, a class on management, and how to manage people. And just giving, it just was instantly applicable. And so therefore, I paid attention a lot better. And when people are like, oh, the teacher's going to let us out early. Great. I'm like, no, I'm paying for this. I want to stay here. I've already committed to this. Let's do this. I want to learn as much as possible while we're here. That's kind of how I ended up here, I guess. I got to work with you at Merit and also at the agency I was at, and now at Gantry, and that's been a lot of fun. Like I mentioned earlier, one of my core memories of my career is that first video we did together, and like sitting up in the conference, we were like, let's go sit in like not in the conference room. Let's put it on the big TV and let's go sit on the couches and watch this and show Kyle. And you were just like, that was awesome. That was so awesome. And I love that. Like, that's still like, just, I think about that and it makes me happy, and we got to go do a bunch of more fun projects after that. That was really cool. So, and maybe got you in trouble a little bit by going and filming in the in the plant there at Merritt. But I like how that. I'm just going on a tangent here. I really loved how I can see that influence, and this has happened with a couple of different clients. When we do a project that pushes a brand and makes it better, and then I get to see our work reflected back in the future work that their internal team does or that their other vendors do, because we're usually small potatoes for any of these big clients. They've got a couple different vendors that they use for these things. To see our work being referenced, or the things that we designed, or phrases that we came up with, or taglines, or usually it's the visuals. That's where I think things really sing for us. That's really satisfying. That's one of those other favorite things, back to that question that you asked earlier, to see our work mirrored back to us in other things that they're doing is really cool.
I agree. I think that would be very satisfying to produce something and then show it to someone, and for them to go, that was awesome. Yeah. So when you're talking about doing an MBA, what's the number one thing that you learned from your MBA that you use day in and day out at Gantry?
Just an analytical mindset, an approach to evaluating how I think about things would probably be the most tangible. I mean, my MBA now, it was December of 2017. Do you remember anything about December 2017 at this point? Nothing. So it's been a minute since that's passed. So, the individual pieces of knowledge, the individual pieces of when we talked about in our accounting and our finance class or things like that, I don't remember all those details. But when I get back into them, I kind of like, all right, this is how I think about this. This is, so just, being able to think more critically and analytically about problems is probably the thing that still sticks with me after, 5 years, 6 years now, almost, of being done with it. So still have some fun connections from that class too. I have some friends that I made that, I keep in contact with professionally, and, keep an eye on what they're doing. But I think, just the different mindset of how to approach problems is definitely the thing that I remember most.
That makes sense too, especially as you're doing more artistic work, to move into more of that. So we talk about a maker, right? You were doing a lot of making probably in design and everything when you were at Verite. And so maybe that MBA moved you more into that manager kind of mindset, and looking at numbers more than just being creative and making things all day.
I was, that Benoit talked about, the unconscious incompetence. I was probably rising to the level of my incompetence there at Verite in terms of I was doing a lot of managing. Corey says, "Oh yeah, Ian was my boss at Verite." I'm like, "I wasn't your boss. Steve was your boss." Steve, we love Steve, and we still keep in great contact with him. But I kind of took on this manager role and this art director role at Verite, at the previous agency that I was at. And that's probably what drove me to go, okay, maybe I should look at this and get some actual experience doing this instead of just making it up as I go, which is, again, that mindset that mentality that I had as an undergrad. I'm like, I'm just going to figure it out. I don't care what these people say. They don't know anything. And then having, going, maybe I do want to know what other people think. Maybe I do want to understand that a little bit better. And so, getting that out of an MBA was, and understanding that management. I've lost my train of thought here on where we were going, but
maybe going from maker to manager.
Sorry,
transition.
That's what we were going for,
and then focus on money too, right? Maker, manager, money.
That's very much that progression. Maker, manager. So I was managing things from that perspective of like the art and the people, but not the let's keep track of the dollars and the hours and all of those things. And that's definitely been helpful as we've thought about how we approach, pricing, how we approach the projects that we are going to take, understanding, our cash flow, understanding, okay, can we do this? Is this going to work out? Is this not a good idea? Those things, that transition is very much that progression of, I was very much a maker, kind of started to dabble into manager. MBA was very helpful in expanding some of those ways of thinking about managing people and projects. And then starting Gantry, being very, very concerned with money and going, okay, can I support a family doing this? Can we, the three of us, all support our own individual families doing this? And it's worked out so far. So, I don't know if I really added any insight to your question there, other than Yep, I did move. I did make that transition, and now I probably spend, anywhere between 20 and 40% of my time making, and then the other, 60 to 80% managing, and making and meeting with the other two partners and making those strategic decisions about what we want to do. I really enjoy that. It's fun. I think partly because of the subject matter and partly because of the people I do it with.
They're not here to defend themselves, but what do you think the percentages are for Ben and for Corey?
Of
maker and manager.
Corey would most likely be happy to be a 10/90, 10% manager in terms of like managing the business, and then 10% like managing our employees and like art directing, and then 80%. That guy just put some headphones on and let him design. He's very much like, we sometimes have a meeting with a new client. He's like, do I need to be on this? Can I just keep working? We're like, yeah, it's fine. If we know that we're under a deadline or something like that, we've got that flexibility. Ben, he's 90% manager, 10% maker at Gantry. That guy is super creative and super fun, and is in a band and all that other stuff.
Writes music.
And yeah, and it's just, and it is very creative. He's not moving pixels around. But he and I will sit down and hash through a script together if I'm like working on something, or he's like, I know you're busy, I'm going to take a stab at this. And, he does a great job. I'm like, oh, wow, you really thought about this in a different way than I would have. And we'll come together with our two scripts and then, hash it out and make the version that we want to send to the client. So that's probably about the mix. And I'm kind of in that middle ground there.
I feel like you and Corey might be the Beastie Boys and Ben might be Rick Rubin.
I don't know who Rick Rubin is.
He's the producer
Okay.
guy. Have you ever seen it? He has a book called Creativity or Create. He's got a big,
right.
long beard, and he doesn't wear shoes, and he's that guy.
Okay,
He's produced a bunch of bands, but he brought them to
Aerosmith
and Run DMC.
Okay.
He's that guy.
Like, that name sounds familiar, but I was going to be just brutally honest when I don't know something. Hopefully.
I feel like he probably brings the best out of everyone.
Oh yeah,
just being there, being present.
First time you meet Ben Moffat, you're like, this guy is not for real. This is such a charade. He's just so full of it. And then you're like, oh no, he's not. It's genuinely him.
This is who he is.
And then you meet his mom, and you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Okay. I love Ben's parents, both of them. His mom is his stepdad, and his dad, I don't know his stepmom very well, but they're all like amazing people, and it's always fun to see, like, oh, that's where you came from. Okay.
This makes sense.
This makes sense now. So yeah. And like I said, Corey is just phenomenally talented designer and seriously hard worker. He's the one who's like, okay, Corey's not here today, so do you think we can go home early? That's, Dad, can we leave?
He sets the standard.
It's just, it's not even like, it's very inspiring. Go, cool. Let's come to work. And, we play hard too, but we come to work, and we know there's, nobody likes a meeting at 5:00 on a Friday, and he's the same way. But if we need to do it, we'll do it, and all of our clients are like, no one's working. What are you doing? But we are, so that's how we roll.
What is the I don't know, 10-year target or goal? Where are you headed as a company, Gantry? What do you want to see in the next 10 years?
We are always striving to just get better at the work that we do and be more and more satisfied with the work that we're doing. So the 10-year goal, we don't, I don't know that we really, really have a solid one. But I think, we'll grow a little bit, but in the service of, we got asked one time, well, how do you guys decide when to hire? And we could take on more projects. We could, say yes to more things and hire, more junior designers and just keep them busy on projects that really won't ever see the website, won't ever, they're necessary. They're good projects, but they're not fun. They're not glamorous. But we don't want to do that. We'd rather hire people and train them up to be just really solid animators, really solid designers. So we'll grow in the effort, in the interest of getting better at our work. So maybe we'll hire somebody who's better at something that we're not good at yet. But I think, the end goal is just to love what we do, keep a good balance, keep our employees happy, keep a culture where people can see themselves lasting for a long time. I know a lot of agencies, it's kind of 2-3 years, then you're kind of scratching for something new. And, we've had our first 2 employees have been with us for over 6 years each now. And I think that speaks to hopefully a little bit about the culture that and how we take care of them. So I think just more of that. I don't have like a grand vision of, we're going to grow and we're going to be the biggest motion graphics agency in Salt Lake or in the West or, anything like that. We just want to do cool work, stuff that I can show my mom and she goes, oh, that's neat. That's cool. That's always nice. A lot of times we're doing stuff that's so technical that, it looks pretty, but I have no idea what's going on. But when we get to do those more fun ones, that's always nice. And to be able to show it and share it with other people and have them appreciate it too. So finding, we're always still just finding our stride, I think always.
What was your biggest fear going into business for yourself?
Oh my gosh, so many. I remember distinctly spending a couple Friday nights figuring out health insurance because we're like, okay, well, the 3 of us are going to start. We're not going to have, we're going to go do health insurance on the open marketplace. Can we afford that? Oh my gosh, this is expensive. Still my, up until recently was my second biggest. I'm on my wife's insurance now. She's got a full-time job, but single biggest expense besides our mortgage was the health insurance premium every month, So that was scary as from a financial, which is, indicative of the financial strain. Okay, is this going to work? We knew that we had some momentum when we started Gantry. We knew that we had some clients who would no longer have their agency that they relied on for the type of work that we were doing because we worked at that agency and it was not going to be around anymore. So we knew that, but just all of the little things that you don't think about that you're like, well, I would get in my head and worry about, well, what about invoicing? What about taxes? What about office space? What about, just, and I would always take a step back and my partners also were just really helpful with this. And my wife was very helpful with this, just, okay, we're not the first people to do this. Lots of people have been doing this for a long time. Lots of people that I don't understand how they're in business are doing this for a long time. You're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. If you don't, we'll go get a job. That's fine. If in 6 months this doesn't work out, we can go, we'll go start over and do something else, or get a job somewhere doing what you know how to do. I personally worried about my contribution. Like I knew what Ben was going to add to this. I knew what Corey was going to add to this, but what was I going to add? Was what I do valuable enough to be, in the room with those two? Because I knew, I've never been the best designer. I've always said, even at Verite, I'm not the best designer, but I make our designers better. And I, but that doesn't always apply to Corey. He's just, he's so talented already. I think we collaborate really well, but, that was definitely one of my concerns is, what's my role going to be in this and what I'm going to bring to the table. And will this still work out? And thankfully it has for, the last 7.5 years that we've, leaned on each other's strengths to propel the company forward.
Talk to me for a minute about having a supportive life partner and what that means to being an entrepreneur.
Oh, it's a great gig if you can get it. All 3 of us married up. I think I know I did, but we will all 3 of us admit to that. But my wife Shannon's super, super supportive. She was always worried if I was going to start my own shop that I would work too much but thankfully, some of the things we learned from the previous agency is just maybe the how the value that we placed on our work-life balance. She's a sounding board. She's, incredibly patient when I'm at home, but like lost in thought and like spinning out about something at work. I could not do it without her. That's for sure. And it's been a fun, change of pace for me to be more supportive of her as she's getting her master's in blended learning. I'm going to butcher the major, but she's getting her master's right now. She's almost done with it. And so it's been fun to be supportive of her and her career as she's gone back to work full time. And and take on, additional, just kind of the division of labor of the household responsibilities, taking a more active role in those. So it's tough, but yeah, I know that it's really great to know we have each other's backs, in pushing each other forward.
All right, now it's time for our lightning round of questions. You probably heard all of these.
Oh,
and
okay.
This is going to be very easy for you. But what's your favorite candy bar?
Caramello.
Interesting choice.
Oh, so good.
That's Cadbury, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is it always available?
Most supermarkets have.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's those caramello eggs at Easter time, though, those are far superior to the regular Cadbury eggs. Those are so good. I don't need to eat as many as I do. Yeah. But that's my favorite.
I'm getting one. I'm getting a caramello next time I go to the grocery store. A favorite musical artist?
I am unapologetically in love with Jimmy Eat World. One of my absolute favorite band. I've seen them a bunch of times.
Did you see them recently? Because they just came.
Oh yeah. No, I took my older two kids to that at the complex. Great show. Learned about some new bands there. Middle Kids and Manchester Orchestra.
We went to Middle Kids. That's why we went. We were there.
You were there?
We were there. It was so hot in there.
Oh my gosh.
We were in the entryway because there was more air right there, and then we actually went by the T-shirts for a while. But so we saw Middle Kids, and what was the
Manchester
Orchestra that my daughter wanted to see them, and we left before Jimmy Eat World. I love Jimmy Eat World, but we were just so hot.
I thought it was great there. Yeah. I was like, wow, the industrial fan here is really cranking. If you were underneath that, it was not bad. It was hot.
I love the complex.
That was my first time there. I've seen Jimmy. The first time I saw them was like in 1998 in a little tiny venue in Portland where I grew up, and recently a friend's brother, my friend who was with me, his brother stumbled upon somebody recorded the show on like a 1998 camcorder, like the whole thing. And you can see us in the front row, like standing there, a young, 17-year-old Ian with hair, just rocking out. And, we'd always talked about how amazing that concert was. We're like, did we just misremember that? Was that just like, we're hyping it up in our mind? And I'm like, nope. I've gone back and rewatched the whole concert. I'm like, this is such a good concert.
Is it on YouTube then?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
We're going to include the link in the show notes.
Yeah. The 1998 La Luna Jimmy Eat World. I'll point out where I am. But yeah, it's and yeah, I've seen him a couple times coming through, and just like music of my that was my high school music, and loved it. And when I got to BYU, if I was wearing their shirt, they're like, "Are you from Arizona?" I'm like, "No, I'm from Oregon." I knew about him before that, but. Yeah, just great music, great rock and roll.
I love his white Fender that he plays. He's got his signature Fender that he plays.
I'm too busy looking at his hair. I don't even look at his guitar. I look at his hair. I'm like, how is you have such amazing hair doing this for 30 years?
Did you see them when they came with you with Third Eye Blind?
I didn't go to that show.
Okay,
I didn't go to that show.
I saw that whole thing. And what was interesting about them to me was that they came out, and I was just like, these guys just look like dads.
They totally do.
They don't dress, because meanwhile, Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind, he comes out, he's got big boots on, leather pants, all this stuff. These guys came out, they were all dressed from the Gap.
They're just relatable dudes.
Old Navy, the Gap.
Yeah.
I don't know where they get their clothes, but they just look like middle-aged dudes. They come out and they rock.
They're just middle-aged dudes who just love playing together.
They're so good, though.
Yeah. I love seeing them live. They're fun.
I like that answer. Favorite cereal?
Ooh. Probably Lucky Charms. It's so good.
Good choice.
My wife one time got me just the bag of all marshmallows offline. It was so good.
You can do that?
Oh yeah. It was like some other some company, but they sell just a full on giant bag of marshmallows. Just the if those are considered marshmallows, but those.
So do they hire people to just pick out the marshmallows and they bag them? What happens?
No, they were slightly different shapes and colors and stuff, but they were the same stuff. Yeah. So it's just a bag of that. You can buy it. Go look it up. Lucky Charms marshmallows.
Did you put milk on it? Did you eat it like cereal?
I would just enrich my mix of Lucky Charms with the marshmallows to create a more optimal ratio. Or my second favorite cereal is 1 part Cinnamon Toast Crunch, 4 parts Rice Chex.
Interesting.
Getting really, really nerding out here on breakfast cereal, but yeah.
I'm going to try that.
Okay, it's good. It's just enough sweet to feel like, ooh, this is nice, but also it's Rice Chex, so it kind of feels adult,
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. You've already answered this, Mac or PC.
I'm a Mac guy. I've been a Mac guy. went from Commodore 64 to a Mac when I was in like 6th grade, and never looked back. Always had a Mac.
Once you go Mac, you never go back.
Corey will have to. He disagrees with you, but he hates it.
Is he moving to PC?
He's on a PC. He's been on PC for a couple months now. I mean, he's like. Then he went back home and was working on it. But he's got it all formatted so that he's like, I only work on this one PC, so I don't need to learn PC. I can make this as Mac-like as possible. And
the quick keys and stuff.
Yeah, the hotkeys and
so
all that
the
stuff.
Adobe.
Yeah,
suite,
so that stuff stays the same. But yeah.
A lot of people I've heard are doing that because of the speed and the memory you can get for so much less money than a Mac. Or what again is the reason
for us?
PC?
It's the 3D. It's the render engine. All of the Adobe stuff is totally fine. Adobe works great. Mac, PC, don't have a problem with it. I work on a 2020. Oh, how long? I've had that computer for a year. 2022 16-inch MacBook Pro. As far as like encoding H.264 video, it just screams. It's great. The thing that we use PC for is our rendering. And when we use Octane, there's some graphics card voodoo that we were all like limited on how far we could upgrade everything. And the whole shop we're like, okay, nobody upgrade past this point, because past this point, our external graphics cards wouldn't be supported in order to render. And the internal ones can, on some of them, like NVIDIA versus AMD or something like that. I don't know all the details, but that was a limitation. And PC it opens up a lot more doors. There's far fewer compatibility issues. So we were kind of hamstringed for a while, kind of waiting to see if Apple would release, the Mac Studio. When that came out, we're like, oh, maybe this will be the solution to it. And it just wasn't quite beefy enough to do the things that we needed to do for renders. And we didn't like the idea of being reliant on a render farm to do a lot of the work we do. So that's why we moved to PC. Like the modeling and the building out of our scenes we can do in just without the external GPUs for the most part, but to actually get down and render it with any sort of reasonable time frame that was in hours and not weeks was spawned the move to PC. We had one of our team members go to PC 2 years ago, and then Corey just switched over a couple months ago.
So what's the speed savings? Like something that would take 4 hours is now something that 1 hour? Or
yeah, I mean it's more that like now we can upgrade our stuff. So the systems that we had were pretty fast. I think we used 1080 as our original graphics cards that we're using. So we're getting, some of these renders, and it depends. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, this is rendering twice as fast on the PC, or twice as fast and really not just on the PC, on the graphics cards that we have in the PC, versus, the Mac is not doing as well, or there's some different components of the engine. The denoising, I know, is one that, hey, on the Mac, it just doesn't work. It just balloons exponentially the time, a frame that should take 3 minutes normally, or takes 3 minutes on the PC, was taking 30 minutes on the Mac, just because of compatibility issues. More than CPU, or more than processor strength in the GPU, I should say. It was just a compatibility issue. So that's where we're at. So it's depending on the render engine that you're on, your mileage may vary, but for us it's the right choice right now. So
okay. Google or Microsoft?
I hate both of them so much. You work in Microsoft, and you try to move a table inside of a Microsoft Word document. I like Microsoft because I have a file. I like having a file. I hate when someone sends me a link to a Google Doc, because I'm like, okay, well, now I have it, but if I'm offline, I can't get to that. And I realize I'm offline less and less these days, but so there's strengths in both. I do like the active collaboration you can do on Google Docs, and we have some Google Docs that we use vital for our business. For bidding stuff out, we kind of have a template that we use to bid stuff out, and that's just kind of this archival. It's already it's online. I can get to it from anywhere. But for sitting down and writing, Word is fine. Although I guess I do put that on whatever strikes my fancy that day.
So you have both. But what do you use for email?
Email, I'm using Google. Yeah, okay. Email, we're using Google and Google Calendar. I'm convinced that no one at Google or Apple has a family calendar and syncs it that way. Like, to add, I could go off on a pet peeve of mine about calendars and how somebody needs to fix it, but maybe I need to be the person who goes and says, here's how we're going to fix this. But yeah, we use Google calendars. And I just use the default mail client usually on the Mac. It suits me well. I'm terrible about setting meetings. So if you've ever been a victim of me sending the meeting invite and then me sending the follow-up meeting invite to say, sorry, that was the wrong year. Let me correct that. I apologize. Ben's usually the one who handles that and knows that I'm terrible at it for some reason. Just something about my brain does not want to schedule things correctly for the correct time zone or year or day for that matter. So
dogs or cats?
Dogs. Have you ever been a dog's favorite person? It's amazing. We got our first dog. Technically, we had a puppy for a couple weeks when my second oldest was just a baby, and that didn't work out. So we got rid of that puppy. But in the pandemic, we got a pandemic dog. We're at least her third home. She was like 18 months old when we got her. My wife picked her out, and I'm her favorite person. Her name's Lola, and I love that stupid dog. She's great. So yeah, I love having a dog. They're so much fun, so much affection, so much fun. She's a great size. We can play with her, but we can also, everybody can pick her up if we need to. She's not like a giant lumbering beast that's going to be imposing. So,
Phantom or Les Mis?
Yeah, between those two, Phantom. I'm, a child of the 80s, and man, those early 90s, when that was just like everywhere. I remember my parents got to see it when it came through, and I was so jealous, but would listen to the music in our car and stuff. So, but Hamilton, also love that. I like some musical theater. I did some in high school. I did a community play a couple years ago, and that was super fun. I got to play Potiphar in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and my two oldest kids were in that with me. Yeah, lots of fun.
What's the book that you recommend the most to people?
I'm gonna give you three. Okay. Fiction. Go read Project Hail Mary. Don't even worry about looking anything up about it. Just go read it. It's fantastic. If you're not a reader, get the audiobook. The audiobook is also fantastic. I recently did that with my kids we did a big old loop through San Francisco and did the Redwoods and Family Reunion and all that stuff. And so I'd already read it, but I'm like, we're going to do the audiobook of this. And I was really worried that they would not like it. Oh, Dad, that's so lame. But like after the first chapter, like, okay, let's listen to another chapter. Okay, let's listen to another chapter. Fantastic book. I think it's entrepreneurial as well. Like it's about problem solving. It's about figuring things out with limited information. Fantastic book by Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian, which is also one of my favorite books. Second book I like to recommend to people is the Wright Brothers Autobiography by McCullough. Like just again, problem solving. Those two are fascinating. Just the way that they did what these two, bicycle repair engineers did what no other government agency, sponsored thing, I learned Langley Air Force Base, named after a guy who was trying to do what the Wright brothers did and didn't ever do it, but we named an Air Force Base after him. Whereas the Wright brothers just figured it out, and their scientific method and the way they worked together and collaborated is just super inspiring. And then the third book I'd recommend, nonfiction. I mean, that was nonfiction, but biography. I really like Mindset by Zweck. I found that very informative on myself. I know that I'm sometimes a very fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, and now I'm really mindful of when someone says, "Oh, when a teacher says, "Oh, your kid's so smart," I'm like, "Don't say it like that. They worked really hard. That's what I really care about." I tell my kids that. I'm like, it's not that you're smart; it's that you worked hard. That's what I care about. I care about the effort. I care about how hard you're working to do the thing you're doing. It's not to understand that talent isn't this magic thing that you either have or you don't, and you can't increase, but you can start out anywhere and just work at it. And anybody who's doing, at the top of their field right now started where you are right now at some point in time. So I really like that, the potential that provides, or the possibility of you can go do anything. You can't do everything, but you can go do anything. So I like that one. There's a couple other books that I like, that I got again from my MBA that one of my professors just had a book list at the end of the semester. He's like, here's my book list. I think everybody should read these. And I've been slowly working through those, Made to Stick, or let's see, The Advantage. And his last name starts with an L. I can't remember what his last name is, but really good about managing teams and about So I like to read things like that every once in a while, just to push myself. I get sucked into reading fun fiction novels for I like Jack Reacher novels. They're my current like binge thing that I'm doing right now. But yeah, I do enjoy reading a lot more than I used to. I have my wife to thank for that. She pushed me into reading after we were married. She read the first chapter of Harry Potter to me out loud. I hadn't read a book since I don't know when. And she's like, I'm going to read this to you and you're going to like it. And I was like, okay, give me that book. And I read the rest of them that were all out at the time. And so that's another thing that I owe to my wife is my affection for reading now, which I definitely did not have through high school and college and thereafter. So
thank you for answering those questions. Those books, links to those books and some summaries of those books will be added to the book section at mmmpod.net, Maker Manager Money website. And thank you so much for being here tonight, Ian. It's been so fun talking to you. I've loved learning so many things about you and your process at Gantry. Just geeking out on all kinds of things. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time now. So thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. I'm so honored to be on the list of people you consider when I listen to some of these other episodes. These guys are really smart than me. This is really good. These guys are really accomplished. I'm just running a small company, So it's an honor, and always love chatting with you. So thanks so much.
Go ahead and talk.
For breakfast this morning, I skipped breakfast, which is what every person asks. Because I ask when we're filming, I go, "Hey, what did you have for breakfast?" And they say, I didn't have breakfast."
A lot of people skip breakfast.
And then they stop talking. I'm like, "Well, okay, fine. What did you do last night?" "Nothing." I'm like, I'm striking out on questions to ask you so that you will talk appropriately.
Do you need a facial wipe?
Sure. I will. I'm not going to shy away from
These are
one.
Burt's Bees facial wipes, and I just feel like
just
setting up was.
Let's just start.
Intense.
Let's start not shiny.
Yeah, I have to plug all. We've got all this product placement. Burt's Bees facial wipes.
It's really fun to look at it after you finish wiping your face. See all that stuff that's been on there all day.